Okay, so we finally got to the more interesting part of the IMAT and the BMAT exam, which is metabolism and physiology. So this playlist is going to be a couple of dozens of videos where I'm going to explain about metabolism. Do you remember that we studied about the atoms and molecules and biomolecules? So this time we are going to study how we actually yield energy from the following molecules and biomolecules. So the general concept of metabolism is that our body is always in the process of either building or breaking down molecules in very specific metabolic pathways. In these metabolic pathways are highly regulated using different enzymes and using different structures that are going to interfere or help the following metabolic pathways. Because we have these specific metabolic pathways, which is one of the properties of life, we need to actually study some specific metabolic pathways that are going to appear on the IMAT and on the BMAT exam. Usually for the IMAT and BMAT exam, we are going to be expected to study about the carbohydrate metabolism, about feedback regulation, about homeostasis, and about hormonal pathways. These are the main metabolic pathways and things in metabolism that we are going to study. We can also study about fatty acid metabolism or fatty acid synthesis, but these are a bit low yield for the IMAT exam. For the IMAT and BMAT exam, they mainly ask you about carbohydrate metabolism, either synthesis or the yielding of carbohydrate into energy, into ATP. So I know it's a bit overwhelming, I'm sure. I said in this video introduction video many different things that you are not actually familiar with yet. So let me give you a bit of introduction to what we are going to study. If you are watching this video playlist as a review for the IMAT, so I'm going to give you also the highlight points that you are going to need to study when it comes to metabolism for the IMAT exam. So we are going to study about something called glycolysis. Glycolysis is where you break down polysaccharides, you break down different sugar groups, and you take the sugar groups and the monosaccharides, the glucose, the fructose, and you insert them into a metabolic pathway called glycolysis. Glycolysis is a sequence of 10 reactions that is going to break down the different sugar molecules into very specific products. These products is going to be beneficial for another metabolic pathway, which is called the Krebs Cycle. The Krebs Cycle is a metabolic pathway that actually occurs inside the mitochondria. And the idea of the metabolic pathways is just to slowly break down the molecules into their products. During the metabolic pathway, you will see that you can yield energy from different parts of the metabolic pathway. You can split and diverse and branch into other metabolic pathways. But we are going to study first of all about the breakdown and the usage of the sugar molecules, of the glucose, of the fructose, and many different molecules as well. You will also see that not only breakdown, which is, as we said, catabolism, we can also build molecules. So, for example, the liver and the muscles in your body have a storage called glycogen. The cells have storage called glycogen. Glycogen is a storage of glucose monomers that is basically going to be yielded when we actually need some energy to the cell. So the process of building this glycogen molecule is going to be an anabolic reaction, and we are also going to see how we build the following monomers and polysaccharides of the glycogen. So we're going to study about glycolysis, we are going to study about the Krebs cycle, we are going to study about the glycogen. We are also going to study about the hormones in your body. And these are the main parts that we are going to study when it comes to metabolism inside your body. You will see that there are many metabolic reactions and pathways in your bodies. But for the admission exam, most of them, like 99.999% of them, are not necessary to study for the IMAT exam and the BMAT exam. So it's very important to know what are the highest yield pathways to know, and which branches of these metabolic pathways is also higher to know. I also want to mention the fact that you will see that many metabolic pathways have different substrates and different enzymes. So the conversion between one substrate to its product to create another substrate to its product. So you will have A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, leads to E, a pathway of molecules. you will see that you have specific enzyme between the molecules in order to catalyze the reaction between the molecules. This is why it is called a pathway. And for the IMAT and BMAT exam, they are not actually expected to start to memorize the following names and the enzymes names. What will be high yield for the IMAT exam and the BMAT exam is that we are going to only memorize the first substrate, the end products, and the intermediate products as well. So we are not actually going to memorize now hundreds of enzymes and products and substrates. It doesn't really make sense. So many people ask me, what should I study when it comes to metabolism? Should I start memorizing the amino acids and the names of the sugars that can come into different places like glycolysis and Krebs cycle? So no, you really shouldn't. But you should learn is to first of all make sure to check our course and to read our lessons before you actually watch the metabolic pathway in the metabolism video series. Because in this series, I'm going to only explain the most important points when it comes to metabolism, because metabolism is a huge subject by itself, but you will see that for the IMAT and BMAT exam you can study and focus on very specific topics, memorize them, know them by heart, understand the concept behind them, and then everything about metabolism for this exam will make sense. I hope this video made sense, and I wish you the best of luck with your studies. I'm really excited to finally take this metabolism playlist because it's a very interesting topic and it's one of my favorite topics, metabolism and physiology. So from this point, it is going to be more interesting. I will see you next time.